So, with that said, let's get started. So this is PortSwinger Academy. If you don't know who PortSwinger is, they're the company that makes Burp Suite. So they kind of know what they're doing, and they make a lot of free labs. So specifically, we're going to be looking at the SQL injection pathway. They have a lot of other paths and a lot of labs that are not inside of pathways. So if you ever want to talk about web cache deception, WebSocket vulnerabilities, path traversal, file upload, what have you. There's a lot across the board, and this is just what they have kind of like dedicated course material for going over. They also have individual labs, so if you're like on the homepage, you would just go to all content and all labs. And when it loads, you would see all of the different labs. And here's a couple of SQL injection ones over here. And there's a lot of SQL injection, good amount of cross-site scripting, uh, uh, lot of cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, clickjacking, cross-origin resource sharing, XML external entity injection. And if it's a web vulnerability, they probably have a lab for it. So it's a really good resource, and it's all free. Some of the labs may require pro Burp Suite features because this is ultimately a marketing tool. But we can reap the reward without paying for it. So that's what we're going to do. Uh, so getting started into SQL injection. This one, I think this is in a different spot actually. A few all topics. This is how you get to where I was before. Yeah, I guess that is the right spot. What SQL injection is, how to find exploit different types of SQL injection, and how to prevent SQL injection. Does anyone here know what SQL injection is already?
I
Cool.
mean, yeah, I think I have a pretty good idea what it is.
Yep.
I have
Uh,
done low level injection before.
yep. You're not sanitizing input at all, enough, what have you. So a user can put in input and potentially get past a filter if you have that in place, where they can execute SQL queries on your database, which is not very good because they can kind of do whatever they want through the SQL injection, at least with whatever privileges the user has that's executing the privileges, which could be over provisioned, or it could have access to more data than you thought it did. So it can be really serious for a lot of different reasons. But I think big one is you don't like people just being able to do whatever they want. Uh, Impact, like what it's saying, you can get passwords or password hatches from it for cracking, credit card, PII, how to detect. This is a couple of things of using the single quote character. Sometimes a single double quote character works. Some SQL specific syntax that evaluates to the value of the entry point and to a different value, or looking for differences in the responses an application gives you, which is just good practice because that can tell you how to exploit multiple different vulnerabilities, such as server-side request forgery as well for like port scanning and that kind of thing. Um, can SQL inject different parts. You can update stuff, you can insert, or you can just grab data, and you can also order it by specific columns in SQL and that kind of thing. Are you guys familiar with SQL, at least to a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because SQL injection really does require at least you do need to know SQL to be able to do SQL injection decently, uh, because as you have to kind of understand how you would build a query and where you can add shit in there. Uh, so a couple of examples are retrieving hidden data, subverting application logic, union attacks, and blind SQL. So for hidden data, if you have like a hidden attribute or a released attribute, you can look for unreleased products in there. Uh, so there's a vulnerability in where clause allowing retrieval of hidden data. So when you do a lab on PortSwinger, you just click on it. I like to control click so it opens it in a new tab. And then has details about the lab, and you can click access the lab, which will open a new tab and it will spawn the lab for you. Um, and this is all free, and after like an hour or so, it shuts that URL down. Uh, this lab contains SQL injection, vulnerability, and product category filter. When the user selects a category, the application carries a SQL query like the following. Select all from products where category equals gifts and released equals 1. To solve the lab, perform a SQL injection attack that causes the application to display uh, one or more unreleased products. So in this case, just looking at the SQL query and knowing what we're trying to do, what where do you think we should try and inject our SQL? If anyone wants to take a guess at it.
Well, we control gifts, right? Because it's a drop down, so we can send whatever data we want in the gifts cat or the for the category.
Yep. Yeah, so we control from this point is where user input is to just talk a little bit about the lab. So let's just walk the lab a little bit. I'm going to turn on my burp foxy proxy now. I do not have intercept on, so everything works just fine, and I don't have to constantly forward stuff. And you can review what's going on using HTTP history. Another option is you can use their browser to do it. It depends on what you're trying to do. For cases like this where I'm not signed into anything important, I'm fine capturing everything. You can add scope and that kind of thing to filter things out, but that's more of an advanced use case than what we need. Uh, so in this case, let's click on lifestyle just to give us something with uh, accept the risk because of the certificate. Lifestyle, and when I go back to Burp Suite, go to HTTP history, we have this filter get method right here. And I hope everyone can read this properly. So there's two ways we can get this into other burp tools. We can right click it and click send to intruder, repeater, sequencer, organizer, compare, that kind of thing. Or my preferred method is to use the shortcut Control R, which is the default shortcut. Uh, and here we can mess with it a little bit more. So we can just send the raw request as well. And see data's here. I like to click on render, uh, and this will make extra web requests to try and be able to properly render it, uh, because I find it's easier, at least from an initial glance, to know did it work or not from the render page, typically, as this is not an API endpoint, than it is to look at the pretty or raw response. If this was like an API endpoint where there's less going on, sure, but I don't feel like reading through all of the source code just be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it worked or not. So let's just see, uh, let's see if we can see if there's any kind of SQL injection we can do by doing a single quote as it kind of suggested to see if we could do anything. And we gain internal server error. So internal server error is one of the more interesting ones, I think, or just something interesting of note because just by changing it, now the server's no longer working. It doesn't confirm that there's SQL injection, but it does add it to my possibility when I'm going through CTFs and that kind of thing.
It's more or less signaling that it doesn't have error handling involved for
Yep,
something like that.
there's something different going on. Even if there is error handling going on, you get a different response back. Uh, and this doesn't look like a generic oops went wrong from anything kind of error. Um, internal server error typically means as it suggests, something internally went wrong versus a lot of web applications don't do what they're supposed to and send back a you screwed up message is the better response, honestly. Uh, it's technically less correct, but it gives me less information. Another thing to check is it responds with a full 500, and this will decode what kind of server error it is and what HTTP response code you get back. The three you should care about is 200, which means all good, but sometimes with a comment if it's not 200. 400 means you screwed up in some way. Anything in the 400 series, as shown by like 404 of why did you try and request something that doesn't exist? How's it going, Shar? And then you have 500, which means we screwed up, sorry. And sometimes they'll add a comment in there. So let's go back to what the previous request was. And let's just try single quotes, colon, dash, dash, which is typical for stopping anything after the sequel from happening, is what kind of these three characters allow us to do is let's stop the SQL query here and let's comment everything out. In some SQL databases, you might need to add in a space and a hyphen just to be like, yep, and here's a space so you know I'm being serious, and it depends on the filtering going on if that'll work or not, at least as directly as this. Another thing is if you don't know URL injection, like if I just have a space in here, this will mess up the request a little bit because this plus sign is treated differently than this green text. You don't have to know the URL encoding of everything. So what you can do is select the area you want to encode, and you can right click on it and can convert the URL encode key characters, which you can also do Control U as the shortcut key for that. And that URL encoded the plus and the other hyphen. So we can do that again, this time using the shortcut. Um, URL code key characters. Actually, that's not what that is. Oh, that's another plus is what that is. Um, and this is just kind of giving it space to make sure the SQL database knows this isn't like a part of your comment statement, if that makes sense. So you still get our 500, which is thing. Uh, Here, let's just try without that and see what kind of things. Another thing that's interesting is we have the lifestyle fully written out here. This is reflected, potentially reflected cross-site scripting is what my thought is when looking at that. Um, Here, clause uh, data should believe. So this is all that's 500. Don't get anything more than that. Another thing is you can try different quotes as well. So this one doesn't give us an error. And if we were to, let's intercept a couple of different ones. So let's look at food and drink, clothing, all, right? And let's go to proxy. Here we can see the different filters, and you can filter it a little bit more over here. Filter by search term of filter, right? And this will tell us only what clicked on. Drink. Drink. And then here's the all, which just goes to the /. So the filter is not being used in that part of it. So let's just move this food and drink back to the repeater. Send request so we have something in the response to work off of. I am streaming, Shar. Are you unable to see it?
It's working fine here.
Okay. That's odd. Maybe try rebooting Discord. Um, and if we do the single quotes, get a 500. And then if we try commenting out, let's try without the semicolon just to see if we get anything. We get 200 now. Looks like it's in issue on your end, Shar. So now we have a successful response. And let's try messing with it now. So we got from the lab, just description, what the SQL query looks like. So we're injecting right here, and it has the and released equals 1. Well, let's have the or least equals 0, and just make sure I'm spelling everything correctly. Right, and if we compare this back to our previous response using these two buttons up here, we see we get double the amount of items. So if we refresh the lab page, they do automatic detection of it, and it notes it as solved now. So again, kind of like vary what you're doing. Some things will work, some things won't work. It depends on it. In some SQL systems, you need the semicolon, and others you don't, like in this case. was probably added after the fact in a way we couldn't inject, would be why. And again, this will update on refresh. So if I were to like update it now, yep, advanced, and now it's labeled as solved. Um, Here, subverting application logic, SQL injection vulnerability allowing login bypass. I think this is one of the more common SQL injection techniques. Uh, it's just from, or at least one of the more well-known and talked about ones is authentication bypasses, which I think is among the scariest things someone could do. So in here, we can also use Burp Suite's own browser for that. So if we go back to the proxy tab and go to intercept, we can just click on open browser. And in this way, we won't need to really, the cert will be is installed properly. I think I messed up how I did it into Firefox. But we don't need to use Burp Suite for it. There's other tools, other web proxies. So this is a tool called Kaido. You may or may not have heard of it. It's kind of like it's a significantly smaller web proxy tool. So we can just do create project, call it hop SQL injection fundamentals. And if we go to intercept, which is kind of like the proxy tab in Burp, you can click on this Chrome icon. This is small text. Give me a second to uh, increase the font size. This Chrome button up here, which will do the same kind of thing where it launches Chromium with their certificate already installed in a similar way as Burp Suite. So if we add it here, we can block requests by clicking the forwarding. See how it's queuing requests now. This has our HTTP history. This has WebSocket history as a separate tab. We can match and replace stuff automatically. Replay is the same as repeater, and automate is the same thing as intruder. In Burp is kind of like how it maps out. Go to uh, uh, cool. So this is the one that goes to Kaido, just to show a different tool where the lab is talking about login bypass, and we want to log in as the administrator users the predetermined way we want to do it. So let's take a look at the lab. So we have home, we have different products, and my account. That's about it from the looks of it. In the products, there could be comment section. In this case, there's not. Home just takes you back to the home page as you'd expect, and login information. So let's be really optimistic, and let's hope they have insecure credentials of administrator and administrator. And let's see. Invalid username or password. Okay, that's fine. Let's look at what that looked like. So in here, have that's Google Smart. product, my account to, uh, I'm going to add this to the scope so I can filter it down to this. So in Kaido, what you can do is I'm going to call this port swigger. And I'm going to add in everything under the web-security-academy.net domain as in scope. I'm going to create the scope, so now it's called port swigger. So when I intercept, I can only intercept based off of that scope. Same thing when I'm viewing the history, so things are a lot easier to look at because now I see the post request right here. So let's send this to replay. Here's here, and you can collect them under different kind of like sections is kind of the goal. In response over here, this is the preview HTML button. It requires you to download the rendering already, which I have done. But we have invalid username password. So let's try messing with it. Let's try doing a different response if we do a single quote at the end of administrator maybe. And we get internal server errors. So this is returning almost nothing back, which to me is a sign that we could be doing something. So let's try commenting everything out after this, you know? Let's see. And we get found my account ID administrator with a section. That seems pretty promising. So you can click follow redirection and it returns HTML. Let's render that. This looks like what the web page should look like with your username is administrator. So let's kind of try and trigger that manually actually. With my account, this gives us the login screen. We've already solved the lab, so it's going to have that annoying header up top. You can always close this and click Start Lab again, and it'll give you a fresh instance that doesn't have the header going on. And let's put anything in the administrator login tab. Invalid password, and the reason for that is I did not include the single quote, which is very important. But we can put any random thing into the password, and we're able to log in as administrator or any other potential accounts. The one thing that I will say with this particular and most of these labs is they are very laser focused on you going to one point and being able to do that singular point. So like in this case, I don't think there's a maybe there's a union injection possibility that would allow you to exfiltrate more data. But in most of the port swigger labs, they keep it very secure, which is kind of ironic, honestly. Here's lab again on a simple refresh. It'll tell us if it's solved or not solved. Retrieving data from other database tables. Select, so this is union attacks, like I was saying. Let's go to the read more on it. So what union attacks let us do is, let's say you have a product, like a clothing brand, and you're just trying to give a spreadsheet kind of look of the pricing, what warehouse things are at, and something else. Well, if you have other tables, such as a users table or something like that, I could do a union injection, and as long as I'm able to do that, I could enumerate how many columns you're initially grabbing, which is the key thing with union attacks is because union in SQL, you have to match the number of columns because you're basically adding to the first data set with the second data set is what I think is the easiest way to understand union attacks, is from doing that. Uh, you have your first set and you're injecting a second set into that from whatever database system is there. Uh, so again, the key thing is determining number of columns required. You can do this in a couple of ways of order by one and that kind of thing. This way, you could put into intruder or automate very easily. But my personal preference is to do a lot of null payloads to see how many I would need. So let's see how you do that in a couple of different ways. So let's access the lab, and let's do this one in Burp Suite this time. This is Kaido, I think. Let's see. Yeah. I have the right one, and it's going to Burp Suite. I'm pretty sure. Uh, no, this is Kaido. Then this is Burp Suite. So in this one, you can see the kind of basic one, whereas this is the all option. So we can refine our search by filtering to accessories, clothing, shoes, and accessories, corporate gifts, food and drink, and tech gifts. Everyone wants an all-in-one typewriter, right? So if we go to Burp Suite, go to HTTP history, we can see all of that. So let's move this over into the repeater tab, and let's try detecting if there's a possibility for SQL injection. And again, we get 500, so something's going wrong internally. And if we try just commenting everything out, we get 200, which is a very good sign that we're actually running SQL code inside of the database. We haven't truly fully confirmed it, but I'd call this basically confirmed. That at least we have some privileges within the some unintended privileges when it's running the SQL. Union select from really give a direction of where we should go in one way or the other. The product category are return applications to retrieve data from other tables is to determine the number of columns that are being returned by the query. You'll then use this technique in subsequent labs to construct the full attack to solve the lab, determine the number of columns required by SQL injection union attack that returns an additional row containing null values. So not a lot of information, but enough. Um, in this case, I think order by would be a pretty good solution. So order by one. Let's see, we get 200. Do we get anything? if we put in like 10,000, do we get a different kind of response? We get server error. Okay, so we know from this our mark is between 1 and 10,000, which is quite significant number. So let's just trim it down to 100. 10, and then from here, let's automate it a little bit. If we select 10, and then if we were to right click and click send to intruder or do Control I, it goes to the intruder tab. This is the community edition, so intruder is significantly worse than on the pro edition. But for this case, it's going to be just fine, where we're going to start from 1 and it's going to go to 10. So in here, this is Intruder. Intruder allows you to do a lot of different stuff. So there's different kinds of attacks you can do. You can do the sniper attack, which inserts payload into each position one at a time using a single payload set. Using a battering ram attack, simultaneously places the same payload into all positions using a single payload set. Pitchfork attack, allocate payload to each position. Intruder iterates through each set in parallel. And in cluster bomb attack, allocate payload set to each position. Intruder iterates all possible combinations of each set. So basically, if you're doing a cluster bomb attack, very good for like login brute forcing. Again, I would probably use FUF for that, especially if you don't have the Pro edition of Burp Suite, because FUF will do it significantly faster than even the Pro edition of Burp Suite. But they kind of do things differently, depends on how you want to do things. Pitchfork attack, if you just want to try multiple different kinds of payload attacks, you can set them all up, and I'll go through each payload one at a time, iterate through each one as it goes. So if you have a separate like username and separate password list, this could be a good option. Battering ram attack. The one thing with the pitchfork attack though is it'll kind of lines up, so both lists have to be like the same uh, uh, same amount of length to each of them, same number of items in each. So that way, like item number 1 in list 1 will match up to item number 1 in list 2. Number 10,000 will line up to number 10,000. You're not going to run into like item 50 in list 1 is mapping to item 100 in list 2. And then we have the sniper attack, which is what we're going to be doing, which is one payload set, and it tries each payload in one time in each position. And here we know it's between 1 and 10, and we're just looking for different server response. So if click start attack, so in here, this is the payload option. So I selected numbers, and in here, this is the configuration, which will be different depending on the kind of attack you set up. So if you do simple list, this one, you can paste in a list from like your notes or something like this. On the pro version, they have a set of lists they've already come up with that you can just add to this list very easily. You can also do runtime files if you want to select something from like sec lists or something like that. Custom iterator, whole bunch of stuff. Brute forcer is an option. This one will take a long time, but will brute force stuff. Dates to give it different formats and that kind of thing. And then numbers, which is what we're going to be using. And you can change the number format from decimal to hex, different stuff for how you're doing it. You can also do payload processing. So if let's say it's doing an MD5 hatch of the password beforehand, you can set up a hatch, and you can select the different algorithm to MD5 and that kind of thing. If you need to, base64 encode, what have you, and this can automatically do what you need to do on that front. So if we click Smart Attack, it gives us Community Edition Burp Suite contains a demo version of Burp Intruder. Some functionality is disabled and attacks are time throttled. Please visit portswinger.net for more details about Burp Suite Professional, which contains the full version. For our use case, it doesn't really matter. The important part is we can filter by response code. So we get if you put nothing in there, or if it does the same thing, you get as your initial value, you get 500. At 3, we get 200, and at 4, we get 500. When you click on this top headers, it'll filter it based off of whatever value that is. You can also add in comments as well. Can add this to Organizer, which I haven't talked about. Organizer is a tab that lets you organize the requests you do, and you can put notable requests in here too, as kind of as a safe holding space. Now the thing with Community Edition is, as soon as you close Burp Suite, every project is temporary. It's fully in memory, so it's just going to drop the entire project. So on the Pro Edition, this is significantly more powerful. But I just sent this request to Repeater because we have order by 4, and I think that might have triggered it as well. Let's see, not solved. SQL injection, you tag return by query. Let's go back. It also opens up a second one. You can save, I think. No, you cannot save in Community Edition. So your options are to keep in memory or to discard it. Again, in this case, this is a small lab. I'm going to discard it. But just note, if you want to save results, you need the Pro Edition. That's just how they do things, sadly. So this is 4. I think 3 is the most rows they have then. Render not solved. Union. Union. Select. Null. 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 Because the order by responded with 3. I'm doing 3 nulls. And I think that's all that's needed to solve this lab, I'm pretty sure. With the 3 nulls, or I guess not. So let's talk about common database things. A very, very good resource for a lot of web app security is going to be payloads all the things. Which is just a GitHub repo, which I'm going to post in chat. That has a lot of different vulnerabilities in here, DNS rebinding, what have you. What we care about is SQL injection right here. And they have a lot about SQL injection as well. Have all of the images. If you're dealing with BigQuery, which is a Google database, Cassandra, which is a popular database that Discord uses, DB2, which I believe is Cloudflare's MySQL compatible or SQLite compatible database, Microsoft SQL injection, MySQL injection, Oracle SQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, and SQL Map. SQL Map is not a database, but it is a SQL injection tool that you can find. But Portswinger tends to use PostgreSQL, and PostgreSQL is a very, very common SQL database to be used. So I would call PostgreSQL something we can select is version and see if we get anything back from version, and if we get 200, that'll confirm that this is in fact PostgreSQL. And we get 200 back, so we do get the fact that is PostgreSQL, and we have solved the lab now that we have selected from something. Accessories. This is the one downside of is the entire injection is clearly being logged, or at least most likely being logged in the application, and we can clearly see it. I don't really think there's much we could do to prevent that, but that is kind of how it is. I think what it wanted was to add an extra column. So if we scroll down into the mess of source code, we have the table body, and the different table items. And right here we can see the empty table that we got from here. So if we select do distinct list schemes, different databases, we can probably list the databases from here. So this is the name of all of the database, the column name, and then this is the table name from here. So if I put this in, these have 2 items and then a view details. So I want to start from right to left because I'm making the assumption that this is probably the rightmost column. And if I were to put in the leftmost column, it probably would not show up, would be my guess. I could be wrong, and we'll see that soon potentially, but that's what my guess on the functionality is. And instead of from version, we're going to select from Postgres_database. So if we do that, scroll down, we get internal server error. I think they're filtering it just to prevent everything from getting leaked, but it's always good to check what's going on even beyond what each lab is intended for. If you know a little bit more, just want to try things, I'd find it useful. So in this case, finding columns with a useful data type. So this is one of the things we didn't enumerate before, was we didn't find a column containing text that we could inject into. So when you do select nulls, you don't actually have to select from something. You can just put a value in there and it'll kind of let you know whatever value you put in there. If it's a string column, it will allow that value to go through. So here we have kind of similar thing. And let's go back to Kaido just to show the workflow in Kaido. Right, we have this, we have lifestyle. If we click on lifestyle, we have these 4 items, right? If we go back to Kaido, get, that's not the Kaido one, I think. Here, lifestyle, Kaido, sitemap, scopes, filter. I guess this is one, just didn't show up really. So I did Control R to send this to replay. So now that that's in replay, we can click send again. And in here, it doesn't just stay on preview, I believe. So you just kind of have to roll with it. And again, if we test for SQL injection with a single quote, going to get into a 500 error more than likely. And nothing shows up on there, but if we no longer we see the 500 internal server error, if we do union plus select null, right, and now we get 200, and everything shows up properly when it renders. So now we want to find a column we can inject data into. I don't know why that's not very happy with me. Here we have the extra table item here. So if we click send and we have the A in there, get internal server error. So this is 9 injectable column. If we change that back to null, just going left to right in this instance for it. We see we have an A item in there now. And then if we inject this one as well, we will see we have internal server error. So only the middle item was actually injectable, is what we have now determined. So here, lab not solved, which I think it should be solved by now, actually. I guess not. What we can do is we can just copy the full GET request. Then we can just select that. And now we have the A item right here, which looks a little funky too. But that should be the solution because we found a column with the injectable. Oh, retrieve the string. This text. Instructions are very important. So instead of just A, we have to use that string so it knows if you solved it or not. And this updated a little bit faster in the Firefox where you've solved the lab. Yeah, so it's getting close to 11. Does anyone have any feedback or anything like that?
No, I think that was a pretty good introduction, and kind of a good. I enjoy the fact that you actually walked through a few different modules to kind of help jumpstart. Like I think one thing that I really gained from this is I kind of learned port Swagger years ago, just ad hoc, doing a CTF on the spot, and it was honestly pretty rough. And kind of seeing your workflow, and having a better explanation on how each of the individual tools within it work has been very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Any other feedback from the group?
I'm definitely giving Kaido a try because I haven't tried that yet.
Yep. Kaido's different tool. They both do the same thing, but they kind of feel very different. I do, from a CTF standpoint, I do prefer like Kaido because you can filter specific things what feels like easier, at least to me, than in Burp Suite, without making the all or nothing decision in Burp Suite of do I put this in scope and lose everything else or what have you.